The chip war between China and the US is starting to feel way bigger than just who makes faster phones. This is becoming a battle about power, control, AI, and the future of technology itself. And honestly, Huawei just dropped one of the craziest claims we've heard in years. Huawei is basically saying, even if the US blocks us from getting the best chip machines, we still think we can reach 1.4 nanometer level chips by 2031. That is a huge statement, because for the last few years, the entire idea behind US sanctions was simple: stop China from getting the most advanced chip technology, so they stay behind companies like TSMC and Samsung. The US blocked China from getting advanced EUV lithography machines. Those are the insanely expensive machines used to make tiny modern chips. Without those machines, most people thought China would struggle badly at the high end. But Huawei is now saying, okay, what if we stop depending completely on shrinking transistors? And this is where things get really interesting. Normally, chip companies improve performance by making transistors smaller and smaller, 7 nanometers, 5 nanometers, then 3 nanometers, then 2 nanometers. Smaller transistors usually mean more speed, better battery life, and more power. That's how the industry has worked for decades. But Huawei says that method is starting to hit limits. So instead of only shrinking things, they created something called the Tau scaling law. Now, don't worry about the complicated name. The simple idea is this: Huawei wants to make chips faster by reducing how far signals travel inside the chip. Think about it like a city. If your roads are shorter and traffic is smoother, people get places faster. Huawei wants to do the same thing inside processors. Instead of only making tiny transistors, they also want smarter layouts, shorter wiring, and faster communication inside the chip itself. And honestly, that's actually a smart direction. Because modern chips are becoming so complex that moving data around efficiently is becoming just as important as raw transistor size. Huawei even revealed something called LogicFolding. Again, simple explanation: they're redesigning how parts of the chip connect together so signals travel shorter distances. Less distance, less delay, better efficiency. And Huawei says the Kirin chips coming later in 2026 will be the first real products using this idea. Now here's the crazy part. Huawei claims that by 2031, this method could achieve transistor density equivalent to 1.4 nanometer chips. Not actual 1.4 nanometer manufacturing maybe, but performance and density close to it. That means Huawei believes it can compete with the world's best chips without fully relying on the same manufacturing path as TSMC or Samsung. That is the part making people nervous. Because if China finds a different route around sanctions, then the whole strategy of restricting chip machines becomes less effective. And remember, Huawei says they already designed and mass-produced 381 chips using parts of this Tau scaling approach over the past 6 years. So this isn't just some random lab experiment they made yesterday. But there's also an important reality check here. Huawei showed no independent benchmarks, no third-party testing, no proof yet that this can truly match future 1.4 nanometer class chips from TSMC or Samsung. And designing something is very different from mass-producing millions of chips reliably. That's where the real challenge starts. Because modern chip making is insanely hard. You can have a brilliant design, but manufacturing it consistently at scale is another battle entirely. Still, you cannot ignore what's happening here. China is clearly refusing to slow down. Instead of giving up after sanctions, companies like Huawei are trying to completely rethink how chips are designed. And honestly, this is exactly what pressure can do. When a country gets blocked from one route, sometimes it starts inventing another route entirely. That's why this story matters way beyond smartphones. This could affect AI servers, data centers, military technology, cloud computing, cars, robotics, and basically the future of computing itself. Because if Huawei succeeds even partially, China could become far more independent in advanced chips than many expected. And that changes the entire global tech balance. It could also create a future where we have two different semiconductor ecosystems, one led by the US, TSMC, Samsung, and Nvidia, and another led by China and Huawei. That would completely reshape the tech world. Even investors are watching this closely now, because companies that rely heavily on traditional chip manufacturing tools could eventually face pressure if architectural scaling becomes more important than pure lithography scaling. Basically, what if smarter chip design becomes just as important as smaller manufacturing nodes? That question alone could change the industry. And honestly, this whole situation proves something important. The chip war is no longer just about who has the smallest number beside NM. Now it's becoming about who can innovate faster, who can adapt faster, and who can survive under pressure. Huawei is basically telling the world, you can block the machines, but you can't block ideas. Whether they actually pull this off, that's the big question. But one thing is very clear right now. China is absolutely not slowing down in the semiconductor race.